Hey guys, Rick here. Maybe you're just like me as we begin this new year, already feeling run down and wore out before we even get started. The good news is this. This book right here tells us that as everything ramps up in society as we're seeing, it tells us that where sin abounds, grace much more abounds. So stick around for this discussion between Chris and I on the differences between grace and mercy and the power that comes with it.
Hello, everybody. Here we are, another R&R. Hey, it's been a while.
It's been a long
Feels
while.
like it's been a while.
Yeah.
It has been a while.
Yeah, we had a little hiatus there, a
We
little
did.
break through the holidays.
Yeah, had a little marriage deal. Our producer got married.
Yeah, yeah,
And so we had to take a little time for them to go honeymooning.
yeah.
You know how that is.
So
And
it's been a little bit.
yeah,
So we got through the holidays, beginning of a new year.
we're in a brand new year.
I thought we finished
love
last
New
year strong, though, with the episodes that
Yep.
we had.
I thought we did too.
Seemed to be a lot of good feedback
A
and
lot of good word back.
positive responses. Yeah, that always helps when we hear back from people.
You know, most people don't realize this, but we've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. Solid.
Sounds like a long time when you say it that
It
way.
does. I mean, when you stop and think about it, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, of course, posting them just for a year, but we started this a year before we
Yeah.
actually posted one. So,
Yeah. And even though we've had a break from episodes, I don't feel like I've really had a break
No.
through the new year.
well, we fill
I am
our days with
Everything
helping
else.
people, right?
Yeah.
That's our call in life and
you
our
ever
purpose.
felt a little run down?
Yeah.
A little wore out?
I think, yeah, sure,
Yeah. I think they
Absolutely.
call that burning the candle at both ends.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've been doing a little bit of that, so I've been pretty wiped out. I get to
Yeah.
the end of the day and,
It does not take long to fall asleep. most
well,
of the time.
yeah, when you can get to there.
That's it,
Yeah.
if you can get to it. Or you get awakened in the middle of the night on
Yeah.
a call or
Yeah.
a crisis or
That too.
whatever. Most people don't realize you don't ever really go to sleep sometimes
Sleep. Yeah.
because you're waiting on that call, or you've got you got somebody in the hospital not doing well, or
Yeah.
you have we have a crisis in the community, which we both respond to things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. So it wears on you. I guess it's good though. You know, it's you're doing good things
Yeah.
and helping people, and they're helping you too, right?
Right.
But just the physical side of it, I think, and
Sure.
I would say the mental and emotional side of it too can drain upon you. And then you're in
Absolutely.
the season of winter on top of that, I guess. and
Yeah.
all those things. But yeah, I've been running on fumes just a little bit. So
I'll tell you
not
something.
the strongest way to start out the new year
no.
on an episode, but it is the truth.
Yeah, and then of course the more intense things take place in the world, you can't slow down. You got
Weighs
to
on you.
increase,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
got to increase to deal with it or to pay attention to it, especially in your arena, and law enforcement officers have to ramp up more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the plan a little bit.
When we did that episode some time back where we talked about set those buckets down, right? And we talked about how people keep adding more and more rocks into your buckets. But
Right.
there's also these times where we've got to carry them. You can't set them down.
That's right.
And you got to carry them, and knowing that people are going to add to them. Sometimes you have to add to them as well.
Yep.
So, the question I guess becomes, how do you do that? How do you keep just from, flaming out? And
Sure.
of course, huge thing in our profession happens a lot for our officers. They just finally flame out, give out. And the question becomes, how do you keep folks motivated and keep them going?
Keep them going forward.
Yeah. And, as you were saying, in times, we're going into this new year, and, everybody has their prognosis for the year and all these other things. But I
Right.
think, there's a common consensus that things don't look real good going into this year with the economy and the political front, worldwide events, and the compounding effects of all that. But also, I think people also keep seeing the escalating violence in their communities, issues with just people losing their stuff. You got chemical dependency at all-time highs.
Oh, wow.
The fentanyl epidemic that are robbing our communities of lives. And
a lot of young lives.
I was just watching something on TV where a guy in one of the major cities was saying we don't have a meth issue anymore. It's all fentanyl. And, people are walking around like zombies, and
it takes so little of that to die. I mean, I lost a little nephew. He's like a nephew. He's actually a cousin, but I grew up, he grew up around me a lot. And this young man, one time, got talked into it, talked into trying it.
Yeah.
One time, it was pure fentanyl. Never woke up, 19 years old.
Tragic.
Little boy.
Tragic. Yeah. But, people are watching that. Well, but it goes back to the question. So why is everybody wanting to take that? What are they trying to get away from? But it's this compounding effect of everything that's going on. And, you keep finding that when people aren't girded up or built up to withstand that, they collapse,
You say the word girded up. There's a great story in the book of Acts where Paul is on a ship. The Apostle Paul's on a ship headed to Rome. And it says, and they sent men overboard with ropes to gird up the ship.
That's right.
That if it hit the rocks, it would not fall apart.
All right.
And what they used to do is take great ropes and go down under the ship, come up on the other side, and do that over and over and over again.
Strengthen the sides
to
of
strengthen
the
the wooden boards, to gird them up. And that's a great term.
And they called those ropes helps.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
And that's where we get what we call the ministry of helps, which Romans chapter 12 talks about the gifts of helps and service.
There you go.
Because that really does undergird. Another statement is undergird the ship or the ark of the church or the ministry that you're a part of, or sometimes the area, different organizations and things that we do to help or undergird our officers.
Oh, look at that!
The FOP, things like that.
Whole biblical perspective on it, but that is correct, right? Yeah. So, how do we have help for our officers? How do we have help when we're just run down? How do we gird ourselves up? What are the ropes, the helps that strengthen us and in some ways, stiffen us for what it is that we're facing? And
because they would do that because they were going through waters. Some charted, some uncharted, but troubled, where rocks were definitely a hazard, right? Hard places. You never knew. Well, we could preach on that for a while.
You know what that's reminded me of?
I may have a few times.
My firewood stuff. So, I love axes and rehanging old axes and things like that. But when you're splitting wood, some people will take rope. Because, if you overreach on an axe strike, you'll hit the wood part of the handle underneath the axe head. Right?
I used to get a whipping for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes,
so
I'm very aware of that.
Destroy the axe that way. So there are, people will wrap almost like paracord rope around that area to help strengthen it, reinforce it.
I don't know that I can finish this podcast now because
sorry I brought that trauma back up for you. But it's another great example of, and maybe that's the right word, reinforcing.
Yeah, reinforcing.
Strengthening to be able to go through those troubled waters. So I think that's the question that's going to be before our profession as we move forward into this year. I think here's the other part. Our officers are like, what more here? I mean, because I always say this, people keep forgetting the last 2 years that our profession has gone through. And our officers haven't. And so they're on the back side of that. So, as things come about, they're not going into this new year with a full tank.
There you go.
And so the question becomes, how do you reinforce them and gird them up and strengthen them for still what's yet to come? And if you tell some of our officers, or especially our younger, newer officers, imagine entering the profession in about 2019, and you think, okay, I can make this work, and then you hit 2020, and it isn't just that the profession has changed, the world changed, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then in the middle of that, your profession is targeted in front and center.
Absolutely.
On top of all that. So now you don't really know any different. And those officers are running thin. They're running out of gas going into this year. And if we come to them and say, hey, everything you've been through, what's coming may be even more than that. How do you not get overwhelmed?
That's where they say, whoa, I didn't sign up for that.
I'm out.
Yeah. And then if they're out,
we're all out.
Right, which our numbers are dropping. If they're out, we're in trouble.
Yeah, you're seeing
record. The wicked people aren't out.
Well, and they're reinforcing themselves.
Right.
You know, I always say that with the stuff that we went through in 2020, all that didn't go away. So it makes you wonder, you know, I've said it before, it all turned on like a switch across the country. It all turned off like a switch across the country. Yeah. Well, where did all that go? Well, it didn't go away.
That's right.
And so when you talk about folks who were leveraging those issues and creating havoc and destroying cities and doing all those things, what have they been doing? Well, they've been reinforcing, girding themselves back up. Yeah. And so I don't know. I think it's a definitely a challenging time, very unique times in the world. And again, that can weigh on you. And I think it poses the question, you know, how do we strengthen ourselves in all of that? Now, we have talked about one of the great blessings, for as bad as it's been, is that it's taken our officers as a profession. And I think we've seen it in other realms as well. Medical profession,
absolutely.
Military,
yep.
Other public safety, those types of things. Folks on the front lines of issues. It's really kind of driven them back to their knees where they find that they really don't have anything else to turn to.
Yeah. When everything's been gone through and used up, what are you going to turn to?
Yeah. And I mean, you've gone through your reserves.
Right.
You know.
And if you're only looking at humans, and they're burned out, they've burned up all of their excess,
right?
All of their knowledge and wisdom and tradition. I mean, you add it all together, everything that's in another human being, and their energy and their spiritual capacity or spiritual knowledge, where do you go?
Well, you say when the worldly events have exhausted your worldly resources, what do you have left?
Nothing worldly.
There you go. So
nothing worldly. You got to go spiritual. Again, it's why we do this podcast, because we're not just flesh, a body, and we don't just possess a soul, your mind, will, and emotions. We are a spirit. If you only deal with the first two layers, you exhaust those layers. There's only so much, as we use the phrase, in the tank, only so much you can get to. And if you don't go to, it's like your vehicle, there's only so much fuel in the tank. Once it's burned up, and you're on E, and that light comes on, and that dinger bell's been dinging, and somebody says, hey, you're chugging down the road. It looks like you're about to run out of gas. Then you have to go to the source that has a bigger tank that is full, and they have to
draw down from it.
And it keeps going to other sources. They have to have it trucked in. They have to go to a bigger source, a refinery that trucks it in to their tank. You got to go to a spiritual tank bigger than you.
That's right.
And he would be called God.
Right. Right.
And he comes to fill that tank in your life up with two things. One's called grace and mercy.
Yeah.
And help or love, compassion. The things, you know, every officer I know personally is just deeply filled with compassion for people. They wouldn't do the job and put up with the stuff they do without having a deep level of compassion. Where does that come from? If you run out of it and you're starting to get ticked, where do you get that compassion back?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Officers I know are very merciful. They're filled with mercy for humanity. That's why they give their life or sacrifice their life trying to save or help or bring people out of trouble, go into waters if somebody's drowning, I mean, the whole 9 yards. Go into a building when they know somebody's in there, has already taken lives, and have made statements they hate the police, they want to take officers' lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's mercy. They may have to deal with that wicked individual, but it's because of compassion and mercy for those who are outside or those who are the victims or around them that they do that to deal with that wicked person.
You know, one of the things I think I was sharing with you that, you know, in this time away from recording episodes for the channel and whatnot, really stumbled upon that. I got to think I'm not the only one, especially in law enforcement, that has kind of had this twisted or confused. But I've really always kind of thought of the two terms interchangeably, grace and mercy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're said in a sentence often like
right,
that.
Exactly. But really, when you get into the word and start studying that, you find out that they're very different in a lot of ways. But by understanding that, there's a there's a lot to gain from
there
that,
is.
Right?
Yeah.
And so maybe you could talk about that a little bit. What is the difference between the term grace and the term mercy?
Well, grace, the Greek word for grace and the Greek word for mercy are not interchangeable. They are different. The Greek word for grace is unmerited favor. In other words, you don't deserve something, right? So that would be like the officer that walks up to someone who's just been stopped for a traffic infraction and they deserve a ticket, but the officer says, I'm going to use my discretion and I'm going to give you what he's actually offering you is grace. He's extending his grace in a favorable manner to say, you deserve this, but I'm not going to give it to you. Right?
But isn't that what mercy is?
Well, mercy is the part where you deserve it, and he doesn't give the ticket to you. His grace is he shows you favor and says, instead of writing you a ticket, I'm going to give you a ticket, but I'm going to bless you and your family to go to the fair because you aren't able to afford that today. Or I'm just going to give you the tickets because I said to myself, I'm going to give somebody these tickets today.
We have a thing in our city that we do with a local affiliate car repair place.
Okay.
And they do a thing that says, I'm trying to remember the term that we use, but fix it, not a ticket, or something like that.
Okay.
And so it's kind of this. So you pull somebody over for an equipment violation, a headlight out, a tail light out, whatever. And instead of giving them the ticket, you give them basically a voucher where they can
fix it,
where they can take it and get it fixed.
Awesome. Okay, so mercy is you didn't give them the ticket. All right, so that is you deserved something, but I didn't give you that. Grace is instead of the ticket, I'm giving you the fix it, and you get to go get what you need repaired or helped. So that's the two. Both are empowering. One's empowering because it sets you free. The other one is empowering because it extends that freedom to something that is put into your life for. So let's say it was a ticket to go get your car filled up with gas. That's grace. Unmerited favor. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. But I gave it to you anyway. It's in Scripture, it's God's grace, where you didn't earn forgiveness. You don't deserve forgiveness. You know, the big question of why does bad things happen in the world? Well, because we deserve it. We don't deserve, you can't live good enough or perfect enough to deserve anything because sin is in your life, the nature of sin. So you got to have favor to where God, you don't deserve his forgiveness. You didn't deserve his son to die on the cross, but he did it anyway. He gave that to you as a means to come to him in relationship. What you deserved was hell, pain, suffering, disease,
spiritual
poverty.
Death.
Absolutely. We as humans, this earth deserves that. But mercy says, stop. I'm not going to give you what you deserve. Jesus said, I'm going to take it on myself.
Right.
What you deserve, this is the word propitiation. It's a big word, but what it means is everything you and I deserved, God laid on Jesus on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And grace is everything we didn't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
He gives to us. Love.
Yeah. So say that again, because that's pretty good right
there. So Jesus becomes on the cross our unrighteousness.
Right.
He becomes what we deserved.
Right. He pays the penalty.
He pays the penalty for our sin. That's the power of the gospel statement.
The one who knew no sin,
who was
perfect in every way, paid the penalty for sin.
He's the one that deserved mercy.
Right.
But see, he was mercy.
Right.
And in turn, he turned to us and gave us merciful forgiveness for what we really deserved. God, in turn, because of that sacrifice, extends then his favor and grace that we have the right to accept that.
So mercy is Christ took on what he didn't deserve so that we could receive God's grace.
Of what we don't deserve.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Which is positive.
And we didn't
Good things.
Oh, yeah.
Good things.
And we didn't get
what he took on what he
deserved.
didn't deserve, which were bad things, so that we could take on what we didn't deserve, which is good things.
See, and this is the struggle in most people's minds about life, is that if bad things happen, well, I deserve that.
Oh, yeah, right. I
right?
get you. Mm-hmm.
Well, what goes around comes around, right? Well, I did. Your mind goes through all the things you've done wrong and why you deserve what just happened to you.
But it's also the struggle why people say, why does bad things happen to good people?
That's right.
They didn't deserve that.
Right.
Why did
I
that
know
happen
them.
to
They
them?
were a good person. A good compared to what? Good compared to who?
Right.
Right. No. So you're the right question to ask is, why does God allow us to exist knowing who we are?
Right.
And knowing that we were sold by Adam or put in sin and in the bondage of sin by Adam.
Well, I also think a lot of times when people say, why do good things happen to bad people, they're placing the bad thing at the wrong feet.
That's right.
Right? So they're attributing that to God, and in doing that, you're denying that there's evil and wickedness in the world. And I think there's a lot of value in understanding that why do bad things happen to good people is because there's there's bad things out there.
Well, it's law.
Right.
It's the law of sin and death.
Right.
And God obeys the law. Mm-hmm. He is the lawgiver, but he also obeys it. He doesn't violate his own law.
Right.
What kind of a person? I mean, we have humans do that, but God doesn't do that. So the law, there's death and pain and sorrow and all that built already into sin.
It's already hardwired into
it's the way,
world.
That's right. It's the way, and it's the world.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
When Jesus comes back, he's going to redeem. He redeemed, when he died, he redeemed creation.
Right.
Not just a human.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says the earth groans for the coming of Christ because it knows he's going to set everything straight.
Set it right.
Yeah.
So, here again, I think that's one of the things. So when you realize that those bad things and all the stuff we've been talking about that's happened and appears to be over the horizon coming our way, that's already hardwired into the equation.
Yep.
So if you know that, but you've yet exhausted all your worldly abilities, resources, and strength, I guess that reminds you that you got to get filled back up from a different.
You got to go to the gas station.
Yeah,
the spiritual gas station.
Yeah. And so here again, I think that deal between grace and mercy becomes, so if grace is you're getting what the favor that you don't deserve, I guess the question becomes, for what? What do you do with that?
Yeah. Well, the same thing you think about, right? As a cop, you're taught and trained. Fill your gas tank up at the beginning of shift.
Right.
Make sure your tank is full. Why? Well, because you may get into a situation where you don't have time to go get fuel, and you're having to deal with something, your car's having to run a long time, or you're having to chase a wicked or deal with a wicked person who is running for whatever reason, right? You may have a lot of calls that night, and you may not have a lot of time in between them, and you don't need to run out of fuel at a particular time. And so you go to the gas station to get fueled up. This is the same thing. Let me read Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 4 and 5. This is the same thing that we're talking about today, is that as an officer, you need to have your spiritual tank full of grace and mercy and love, compassion, not just for you, but for everybody else too, right? Because what comes out is what's put in, right? So in Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 4, it says, "But God, who is rich in mercy, for his great love, he has loved us. Even when we were dead in sins, he has quickened us." That word quicken means that he's made us alive. He's resurrected us inside. He's quickened us. "Together with Christ, by grace, you are saved." Unmerited favor, you're saved by grace through faith. What you believe,
what you don't deserve.
And what you don't, that's right. You're given what you don't deserve based on faith. "Even when we were dead in sins, he quickened us together with Christ. By grace are you saved, and has raised us up together and made us to sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus." In other words, we have access to him. He's given us access to him by Christ Jesus. If you drop down, just if I can drop down here for just a moment, he says in verse 8, "For by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourself. It is a gift of God." Grace is a gift. Verse 9 says, "Not of works." You can't earn it.
Right.
Why? Because lest any man should boast. King James, you and I would say, in case you just arrogantly decided that you wanted to brag about how cool and awesome you are.
That's
and
right.
Look what you've done yourself. And you don't need all that stuff because you are the bomb.
So hang on to that for a second. That would say to our officers, kind of going back to this thing, when you've exhausted all these worldly resources,
that's right.
You now know, moving forward into this new year and all these challenges that are coming our way, there will be no other explanation for us to be able to walk through that and still do what we need to do in our own stead.
No.
Right?
That's right.
There's no way we're going to be able to do it.
No way you can do that.
So when you're that young officer, or maybe you're that seasoned veteran who has said, "Hey, dude, I've already done this for 25, 28, 29, 30 years, and you're telling me I'm getting ready to go through even more or worse, I got nothing left." Well, there's good news in that. We're gonna demonstrate here that you're right. You can't.
You don't. That's exactly right. You don't have anything left.
So our profession is at this crossroads where the vast majority of the folks are saying, "I can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
I just can't do it anymore," and they're walking out the door. Yeah. I think part of the secret is you're right. You can't do it. You can't do it.
And so you can't go to the gas station of humanism. You can't go to the gas station of atheism. You can't go to the gas station of unbelievingism.
They got nothing for
you.
Name
all the isms and all the gas stations that have all the isms, and they don't have anything.
Right. They're empty.
You ever see those little yellow plastic bags they put over the gas nozzle that says
only after you pull
out
up
of service?
Yeah.
And you pull up there and you're almost in your own sucking fumes. And it's like, yeah, this ain't good. Right. I ain't got time to get to another station. No, you got to find the right station, right?
Right.
That's full, that's ready to go, and here's the deal: the price is free. Somebody's already paid it for you.
That's right.
Just like you have given little fuel cards to people in the community to try to encourage that relationship between officers and community. God has given you a free fuel gift card from Him to encourage your relationship with Him and to build that between the two of you, to bridge that gap, to say, you don't ever have to run out of my grace. So, I got a full, he said, rich in mercy, rich
Right.
in grace. Yeah.
Right, right. So that goes back to this idea of, okay, so once you have that grace, once you have what you don't deserve, then is the second part of that, which is, now what are you going to do with it?
Right.
Right. And so I think that's a real question for for those on the front lines. If you go and get your tank filled up where there's a full tank, now what are you going to do with that?
Well, you're going to use it daily, and
So
it's going to get burnt out, right?
But it enables you to do what needs to be done.
That's right.
Right?
It's enabling power.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great realization or epiphany, is that it's not just about a mercy where you're forgiven. It's this grace that empowers you to be able to sustain. It's the helps. It girds you up to be able to sustain what it is that you need to walk through.
It's so that
God's grace
His
does that.
grace is so that you get the power you need to live fully with great expectation daily.
Yeah.
Grace empowers you because you realize not only do you have unearned favor, but you're able to extend that unearned favor to other people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, there's power in that.
And that creates a realm of forgiveness.
Uh-huh.
That creates a realm of mercy. It creates a realm of compassion that as you walk that out, you're empowered then to show or reveal that more and more and more.
See, I think there's something liberating in that.
Oh,
because
yeah.
Right? I mean, beyond the obvious, but
Yeah.
but that when it clicks in you that, again, I'm just using myself here. I really crossed the wires with grace and mercy, and just really have always thought about grace just being interchangeable with mercy.
Right.
But it seems like the great secret in all of that is that when you unlock grace, it then enables you with this power not from you, but God's power.
But God's power. That's
to
right.
walk out what He's called you to do. I mean, we've talked about it numerous times, but you got to get to that point where you realize, I was called to do this job, this profession, this call, but I can't do it on my own.
That's
when
right.
you get to there, which is without a doubt where we are as a profession, then you drill back into, so where do I get the power, the help, and the girding up to be able to withstand it and keep moving forward?
Which is very healthy, right? It's
Yeah.
really very, very healthy. I firmly believe this with all of my heart. Most people get in trouble mentally with mental health because they have a belief they are their own source.
Talk about that.
And and so
Hey, man, people are taught that.
yeah. So when they run out in their own heart and mind of themselves, they have nothing else to live for because they know they're done.
Well,
They don't have anything left because they're tapped out.
see, I think that therein lies the great deficiency of this whole mantra or thought process over the last several decades of self-help.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you just don't understand how you yourself can fix this problem.
Yeah.
And so when people keep finding, hey, I can't,
How's that working for us?
that's right. Then you fold in all these mental health dilemmas that folks get into, right? Obviously, there's the physical part of that,
Sure.
chemical imbalance in the brain and all
Right.
those other things. But a lot of it is when you're talking about depression and even suicidal thoughts and things such as that.
That's right.
It's where somebody has come to the end of themselves.
Say that again.
They have come to the end of themselves.
That's right.
And you can't, there is, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I truly just don't anymore believe that there is such a thing as self-help.
Well, there's only so much of you there,
Yeah.
but there's not a
You're going to
limit to
exhaust
God.
it. That's right.
There's not a limit to the fuel in His tank,
And usually it's self-help, it goes back to our question, according to who?
according to who?
To
That's
the
right.
guy or the gal that wrote the book that's making millions of dollars off of
Right.
it. You know, you'll be just fine as long as you do what I say that you can do or
But
should
there are
do.
different personalities
That's
within the scope of that. There's different limits to individuals.
Well, it's still flawed people trying to tell flawed people.
Thank you. Thank you.
how to improve themselves.
How to do it.
Right? That's where we go back to this ultimate book, right?
That's right.
I call it the shelf help book, right?
Yeah.
It's on the shelf. Pull it off the shelf and get in here. This
go.
is where some real help is.
There you go.
The helps, the ropes.
So when man comes to the end of himself because he himself has become his God, he is so blatantly aware of his limitations or her limitations, they have no other source to go to. So in that they've worshiped themselves, it's as though they have realized that their God is totally limited. And so with that limitation comes a despair. And that despair is, I got nothing left.
Well, it's because you've exhausted it and you stumble upon the realization that you are insufficient for what's needed.
That's right.
Now,
So you either have to have a change of belief,
right,
which is a core belief to the very bottom of your soul and your spirit, or why live any longer?
Well, and that's that fork in the road that people come to.
That's right.
Are you going to try to do it in your own stead, or are you going to surrender this to the only help that really exists?
That really
right?
exists.
I want to talk about that in a different scripture here,
Okay.
which is over in 2 Corinthians.
Yeah, I like
and
that
it's
one.
chapter 12, verse 9, and it's the Lord speaking to Paul,
Right.
and he says, and the scripture says, "But he said to me," meaning Jesus to
Paul. Right.
quote, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect
Hallelujah.
in weakness."
Yeah.
Man, break that down for a second.
Yeah.
So we just said that when somebody comes to the fork in the road where they realize they're insufficient for the task, if you're an officer out there and you think, I've emptied my gas tank, I've exhausted all my human abilities as an officer, I feel insufficient for the task that lies ahead of us, there's good news here.
That's right.
If you turn back to the Lord, or turn to the Lord for the first time in your life, he, just as he's telling Paul, is telling you in this book, Shelf Help book, my grace, this grace, is sufficient for you. It makes you sufficient, not insufficient. But then he says it's not just the grace. This is, I think, what the key is for our profession right now. It's not just the grace. The grace then enables you with power.
Yeah. King James says, my strength.
Right.
My strength.
Right.
Is made perfect in weakness.
That's right.
So God actually loves. Now we're taught that weakness is bad. This is why the kingdom of heaven is in reverse of the kingdom of the earth. We're taught all of our lives that it's the strong person that has all the power. But see, God's kingdom is completely upside down from that. And he says, no, it's the weak person I like.
Because he can work with that.
That's right. Because they know that in their weakness, they got to cry out to whoever's stronger, and that's me.
Then you can't boast.
Then you can't. That's right. So what happens is, especially in very, very strong cultures in the earth, like law enforcement, military, because it's pumped into you.
Type A personalities.
Nobody can kill you. Nothing
right.
can happen to you. You can beat everybody. You can win. You can do it. Until you run to the end of yourself.
There you go.
And then you realize, well, that wasn't true
That's
at
right.
all.
You have to be in control.
When the bullets are flying, they don't care that I can lift 500 pounds on a bench press.
That's right.
Those bullets don't, a knife blade doesn't care how powerful you are in that term. It cuts through flesh.
So it's almost like you have to get out of your own way.
That's right.
And let him do the work.
Yeah.
So when we say, man, I can't imagine the work that lies ahead here. Well, the secret is surrender that to the Lord. Drill back into your faith, right? Allow him to reveal himself in and through you. And his grace will be sufficient. And like we say, his power or his strength it comes to the surface in your weakness.
That's right.
Well, that's a huge thing right there, man.
So
he empowers you.
So in my mind, let's go back to the car at the beginning of the shift analogy, filling up with fuel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being out on a run. You forgot to fill up with fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, and you've got. I mean, the computer's going crazy with runs. You know, you don't have time for that. You're going to get in trouble with the sergeant. You're going to get in trouble with your lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
You pick up the phone and you call the garage and say, hey, can you send the mobile fuel truck out? I don't want to run out of gas. And they say, well, absolutely. Where you at? What's your location?
Mm-hmm.
And they come out. They don't make fun of you. They don't mock you. They don't tell you, you rookie, look at you, you silly you ran out of fuel. Don't you know better than? No, they just come and fill up your car and say, don't worry about it, brother. And don't forget tomorrow, go back to the fueling station at the first thing in the morning.
Right.
First thing of your shift. But we got you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how God does us. Whenever we run out, right?
When you come to the end of yourself.
Because we forgot to fill up at the first of the shift. He'll show up. If you ask him, you got to call him. He'll show up. He'll get your tank full again. But he doesn't mock you or make fun of you because of that.
Right.
And he doesn't call out to everybody and send out a notice on the computer, you know how guys did, and then, at roll call, he's not there waiting to tell everybody that you ran out of fuel.
You've been to a roll call before.
I've been to a roll call before. A few of them, actually. And so, no, what he does is he does that, and he says, now, son or daughter, listen, tomorrow, meet with me. I'll make sure your tank's topped off, and you can go at it again. That's the power of grace.
Well, and here's what's so cool. What's the I don't know what you call it, the theme, the song that represents law enforcement. What do we play at every law enforcement funeral? What, when they play it, brings you to tears every time.
That's right.
Amazing Grace.
That's right. Mm-hmm. I could sing it, but
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
And so it's not. But here's the thing: it's not just a sense of mercy or forgiveness. I can tell you, I've always thought of that song really being about God's amazing forgiveness for us. But really, it is this amazing favor that enables or empowers us to do the things that we need to do, that he calls us to do.
And you don't know how much of it is in you. You just keep refueling the tank every day until it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's needed, and you make it through the worst day of your life, or you're not falling apart like other people are, or your weakness is not. Now, here, I'm going to tell you, here's a powerful part of this. For every copper listening to me right now, or military guy, your weakness never really gets revealed to everybody else. It's only revealing it to God.
Yeah.
Because you appear to be stronger than you actually really are.
How's that guy able to do this job and keep motoring? It's like it doesn't affect him.
So it's like having an invisible spotter when you're on the bench and you're pushing 600 pounds and everybody's standing around watching going, how in the world is this 135-pound guy with arms like a spaghetti noodle pushing up 600 pounds? What they can't see is the invisible spotter that has his hands on the
Hand
bar.
of God.
And you're pushing, but it's not like having the full weight on your life or on your chest or on your arms, because the help of God, the grace of God, is empowering you, even though nobody knows that's what's taking place.
One more scripture before we wrap up, because I think it perfectly dovetails what you've been talking about.
It's powerful. Yeah.
And that's in the book of John.
Yep. John chapter 1. I think verse 14. You got it?
So I'm there. John 1, 14 through 16. Listen to this. And the Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. And we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth.
Yeah.
Grace and truth.
And truth.
15 says, John bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me because he was before me."
Yeah.
That's another important
That's another,
thing
yeah,
that we'll get into sometime.
Yeah.
But this last part, going back to your fuel tank example.
Yeah.
For from his fullness,
come on,
we have all received grace upon grace.
There you go.
The wonderful thing in that makes his grace amazing is it's grace upon grace. It's this compounding effect.
That's right.
So it's not just fill up your tank, drain it all the way to empty, then go find him.
Right.
It's kind of like what we try to teach officers. Don't ever let your tank get below half a tank.
There you go.
Why? Because you don't know when you're going to have that pursuit, or you're going to get stuck on that perimeter, or whatever the case may be. So always keep your tank above half a tank. Well, how do you do that? You got to keep going back to the source, even when you think you don't need it, right? To top yourself back off.
That's right.
And I think spiritually you can do that. That's why we always talk about get in this word, right?
That's right.
When you start your day, get into the word. Start your day with this word, and fill your tank up.
Yeah. This word is like the hose. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and then
you start
the
pumping
compounding
it in.
effect is you never run dry.
That's right.
And that's how you have the power to withstand what we go through and to keep moving forward.
That's right.
That's what makes his grace so amazing.
Some of the greatest generals, some of the greatest officers, some of the greatest men and women on the planet are in their Bible and historically have been in their Bible and were faithful daily Bible readers, and they will tell you that's what saw them through their darkest hours of life. Some great generals, when they had to make horrible decisions, distraught, pacing the floor. Abraham Lincoln, when he had to make horrible decisions, faithful Bible reader every day. Great men and women of God have served this nation, this country, this world in wonderful, powerful places in the community and in our government areas and first responders. Great Bible readers, love their Bibles. And that's why they go through these things not easier, but stronger than your average person does.
It's by that power.
That power, that grace given to them.
That's the secret.
That's right. And they'll tell you really quick, only God got me through that.
That's right.
I've talked to many officers that have been shot at. I mean, oh my gosh, vehicles riddled, in shootouts, have no clue how they didn't get shot at. And they will tell you, I'm telling you, it was God.
Mm-hmm.
It was God.
Mm-hmm.
We personally know people it was God. No way I could have gotten through that without the grace of God. The favor of God was on me. That's actually what led me to understand God was in my life. And when I started putting my trust in him, my life changed. I've heard innumerable stories about that.
So I think that's ultimately the question for anybody watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's there, as you said, it's a free gift. It's free of charge.
Yep, been paid for.
And, you have it available to you. And then if you receive it, you take it, you fill your tank up. The ultimate question is this. So now what are you going to do with it?
That's right.
What are you going to do with that grace? What are you going to do with that power that's been enabled through his grace? What are you going to do with it?
There you go.
And I think that's the big question for us going into this new year is what are we going to do with it?
What are we going to do with it?
If God has revealed himself to us as a remnant, what are we going to do with it?
And it's going to empower you to get through the year.
That's right.
As things ramp up and get more intense.
So as it's been exhausting and it's wore us down, it's made us hungry, it's made us thirsty for that grace and power.
So let me say one more thing in our closing, and I know we got to go, but let me say one more thing to maybe help somebody right now. If God calls you, he will grace you, that word again, empower you for what he calls you for.
He equips you.
God will never call you to something that he does not equip you or give you the resources you need to do it. So if you're a cop, in this day and age and moving forward, and everybody keeps telling you it's going to ramp up, it's going to get more, it's going to get stronger, it's going to get more vicious, it's going to blah, 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 and you are willing to trust God, just please understand.
That's right.
You will have what you need to not only make it through it, but succeed in the process of making it through it if you trust God. And
not only survive,
not
but
just survive, but
thrive
through that. That's what grace is for.
Man, that is amazing.
And he will never, ever withdraw himself from anything he's called you to do. He will empower you to do it.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, that's good stuff.
That is good stuff. Hey, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let me have just a personal conversation with you guys. We do this. Nobody pays us to do this. We don't make any money on anything that we do. We do it 100% from the love of our heart and for officers. That's the way we've done everything.
Yeah.
And so you can help us in that, in just making us able to reach larger numbers of officers. Nobody sends us anything. We don't have advertisements. And as you well know, you get on here, you got to watch 45 ads before you watch this program. So we do this of our own accord, from our own finances and what we do, because we love you. But you can help us in other ways by keeping our numbers strong. We have a sense that maybe something's keeping us from breaking over certain numbers, but you can help us do that by subscribing, hitting that bell, and giving us the opportunity to keep blessing officers and other first responders and people around our nation, to be a blessing to them. And that's why we do this. Rick and I do this. And so if you do that, you just help the program get stronger. We love you. Nothing you can do about that. We call you blessed. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Rick and I trust that you heard something that will help your life. And if you believe that it would help others, please make sure and share. Like and subscribe and hit that bell so that you can be notified when the next podcast is available. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.